She said it was a business trip, but I found her wedding ring in the bathroom sink, and her business partner had just texted her. Same hotel? Same room? The house was quiet. Mark had returned home early. A last-minute cancellation of a client meeting gave him a rare afternoon off. He parked the car, walked inside, and called out Sarah's name, expecting no answer. She was supposed to be on a business trip in Chicago for 3 days. He wasn't worried, until he stepped into the bathroom to wash his hands and saw it, her wedding ring, sitting alone in the sink. Not on the countertop, not in a box, but inside the cold porcelain basin, like it had been tossed there in a rush. Mark froze. Sarah never took off her ring, not for the gym, not for sleep, not even when they argued. He picked it up, the gold still warm, as if it had only recently been left behind. His heartbeat began to climb slowly, irrational thoughts crawling into his mind. Maybe she forgot it, maybe she dropped it, maybe, just maybe, it meant something more. He walked into the bedroom, looking for any other clues. Her suitcase was gone. Her side of the closet looked the same, but something felt off. Mark couldn't explain it. A gut feeling, like the first sharp shiver before a storm, then a buzz. Her tablet, left behind on the nightstand. Normally she took it with her everywhere. She used it for work meetings. The screen lit up again. Same hotel, same room? T. Mark's breath caught. His hands trembled. He opened the message app. The contact was saved simply as T. He scrolled up. Only a few messages were visible, but they were enough to send a shockwave through him. Can't stop thinking about Thursday night. You looked incredible in red. Did you tell him anything? Mark sat down on the bed slowly, staring at the device like it was a loaded gun. This wasn't just suspicion anymore. It was a breadcrumb trail, and he was already following it. He looked back at the ring in his hand. Suddenly, it didn't look like a symbol of love. It looked like evidence. What happens next will shake everything Mark believes about love, trust, and loyalty. Stay tuned for what he finds out in the hotel, because the truth is only just beginning to unravel. Coming up next, the man in the messages. The man in the messages. Mark sat in the dim light of the bedroom, Sarah's tablet resting on his lap like a confession too scared to be spoken aloud. His finger hovered over the screen, heart pounding like a war drum. He didn't know whether to keep reading or throw the tablet across the room, but something inside him needed answers. Answers that wouldn't come from silence. He tapped into the message thread again. More texts appeared. Thursday was magic. I've never felt so seen. I dreamt about you last night. Mark's clueless. Still thinks I'm on a work trip. Poor guy. The words sank into Mark's chest like concrete. She pitied him. She mocked him. This wasn't just cheating. It was cruelty wrapped in casual emojis and heart-shaped lies. He scrolled further. A photo. Blurry. Taken in low light. A hotel room. Beige curtains. Familiar bedding. Sarah's red dress crumpled on the chair. And a man's arm, strong, tattooed. He zoomed in. On the wrist, a distinct tattoo. An hourglass cracked down the center. That tattoo struck him instantly. He had seen it before. Not in person, but in a photo on Sarah's Instagram. A company barbecue 3 months ago. One of her co-workers had commented, "Classic Ethan. Always overdressed and late." That was the name. Ethan. Mark's mind raced. Ethan worked with Sarah in the same department. She always mentioned him casually, like he was just another project lead. But now the tone of her voice in old memories suddenly sounded softer, more careful, more warm. Mark dropped the tablet on the bed. He needed air. He needed clarity. He stepped outside onto the porch, the evening air cool against his skin. But his thoughts burned. Was this a one-time mistake? Or had his entire life been a slow, quiet unraveling while he was too blind to notice? And worst of all, was he the last one to know? He opened his phone and scrolled through his photos until he found the one from the barbecue. There he was, Ethan. Black shirt, blazer, wrist tattoo barely visible as he stood next to Sarah, their arms nearly touching. Sarah wasn't even smiling at the camera. She was smiling at him. Mark's jaw clenched. He knew what he had to do. The next time she lied, he'd be ready, not to confront her, but to catch her. And this time, he'd make sure there was no way out. You won't believe what Mark sets in motion next. When betrayal cuts this deep, trust isn't the only thing that gets broken. Stick around, the next chapter is where the real game begins. Next up, the setup. The setup. Mark didn't sleep that night. He laid there, staring at the ceiling. The faint glow of the hallway nightlight casting shadows that danced like ghosts of everything he used to believe. By 6 a.m., he was already dressed, eyes bloodshot. His mind razor-sharp. He couldn't confront Sarah yet. Not without evidence she couldn't explain away with some fake tears and carefully rehearsed apologies. He needed undeniable, painful truth, so he made a decision, one that would change everything. Mark dug through his closet until he found an old GoPro he used to take on hiking trips. He still had the magnetic clip mount, discreet, easy to place. He carefully hid it inside the bookshelf in the living room, pointed straight at the couch. The place Sarah always lounged after work, texting God knows. He tested the feed through the app on his phone. Perfect angle, perfect sound. Next, he downloaded a call recorder onto his old backup phone. If Sarah ever called Ethan again while she was home, he'd catch every word. He knew it was crossing a line, but that line had already been shattered the moment Sarah smiled in that photo with another man. By noon, Mark had transformed into a man with a mission. He wasn't just betrayed. He was on a hunt for the truth. That evening, Sarah came home like nothing had happened, hair tied in a messy bun, grocery bag in one hand, coffee in the other. Long day? Mark asked casually, pretending to scroll his phone. The worst, she sighed, dropping her keys into the bowl. Ethan's being a nightmare about this new campaign. Mark's jaw clenched slightly. She said his name, out loud, to his face. Was that confidence or pure arrogance? He smiled. Want to vent about it? He asked, keeping his voice even. She shook her head. Not worth the energy. I'll just text Emily about it later. Emily, her best friend, the one who supposedly hated drama. Mark wondered now how deep this rabbit hole went. And then, just before bed, he saw her. Sarah curled up on the couch, phone in hand, fingers moving quickly over the screen. Smiling to herself, he stepped out of the room silently, phone in his hand, watching the live feed from the hidden camera. Zoomed in, clicking, typing, smirking. It didn't look like someone talking to a coworker. It looked like flirting. And then, just before midnight, her voice broke the silence. A whisper. Miss you already. Mark's heart dropped. He replayed the recording to be sure. There it was, clear as day. Not a friend, not a colleague, a lover. The next morning, Mark transferred the footage to his laptop, organizing every clip by timestamp. He was building a case, not just for himself, but for what came next. Because if Sarah thought he was the same man she once married, she was about to meet a very different version of him, one who didn't ask, one who took back control. And just when you think you've seen everything, in the next part, Mark makes his first bold move. And trust me, it's not what Sarah expects. You won't want to miss what happens when she realizes. She's being watched. Coming up, the trap. The trap. Mark couldn't shake the feeling anymore. This wasn't just about betrayal. It was about power. And for the first time in weeks, he wanted it back. He spent the morning editing the video clips from the GoPro, isolating Sarah's giggles, her whispers, her late-night confessions to a man who wasn't her husband. Every second stabbed like a needle under the skin. But instead of breaking, Mark began planning. He needed to push her, to corner her, to see what she would do when her fake little world started to crumble. So he set the bait. That evening, he told her he had to go on an overnight business trip. A lie, one she accepted far too quickly. She didn't even ask where or why, just nodded and said, "Drive safe." Babe, that was confirmation enough. Mark left with a packed bag and circled the block until her car disappeared down the road an hour later. He returned, silent as a ghost. The hidden camera was still rolling. The trap was set, and within 20 minutes, it caught everything. The front door opened. Sarah walked in. Not alone. It was him, Ethan, tall, confident, wearing the same smug grin from the photo. They barely made it to the couch before kissing. Mark watched it all live from the garage, his heart a stone inside his chest. He didn't cry. He recorded. He memorized. He listened as Sarah giggled and said, "He's gone. We have the place to ourselves." Those words, they lit a fire in Mark's bones, but he still didn't burst in. Not yet. Let them get comfortable. Let them feel safe. At 1:13 a.m., Ethan left through the back door. Mark waited 5 more minutes, then walked in. Sarah was in the kitchen, wearing one of Mark's old t-shirts like nothing had happened. When she saw him, she froze. Her mouth opened, but no words came. "You looked like you were having fun," Mark said, calmly setting his keys on the counter. Sarah's face turned ghost white. I thought you were gone." "Oh, I was," Mark replied, holding up his phone. "But then I got curious." He clicked play. The video echoed through the room. Her laugh, her moan, her whisper. "I missed you." Sarah reached for the phone, but Mark pulled it back. "Don't," he said, voice sharp as glass. "Don't even try." Her eyes filled with tears. "Mark, please. I didn't mean for it to go this far." He stared at her, cold. "You invited him into our home," he said. "Our couch. Our life. Do you love him?" he asked. Silence. Her eyes darted. Then she whispered, "I don't know." And that hurt worse than any lie. Not no. Not yes. Just nothing. Mark turned away, not to avoid her, but to stop himself from saying something he'd regret. That night, they slept under the same roof, but it felt like 2 different planets. The distance between them wasn't just emotional. It was miles deep. Mark knew then. There was no saving this, only exposing it, only finishing it. And just when you think he's done, he's only getting started. The next chapter? Let's just say Mark takes things to a whole new level. You won't believe what he does next, and neither will Sarah. Up next, the unraveling begins. The unraveling begins. The next morning, Sarah pretended nothing had happened. She made pancakes, like a peace offering dressed in syrup and powdered sugar. Mark sat across from her, barely touching his plate. His eyes never left her face. Every smile she gave him felt rehearsed. Every "pass me the syrup" sounded like a test. A test she thought she was still passing, but Mark wasn't playing anymore. He was watching. He knew people revealed themselves most when they thought the storm had passed. That day, he called in sick to work. Another lie, and from the quiet safety of his home office, he began digging. He pulled phone records, bank statements, deleted emails. What he found changed everything. There were hotel charges going back 6 months. The same hotel, same time, always on work nights. There were Uber receipts from neighborhoods he'd never heard her mention. Transfers to a Venmo account labeled EK Services. Mark dug deeper and found the name. Ethan Keller, not just a fling. He had a business, a side hustle, a personal trainer. Mark's heart pounded. Sarah had told him she hated gyms, so why was she sending hundreds of dollars to a trainer? Was this how it all started? A fitness consultation that became a secret affair? That evening, Mark casually asked, "Did you ever think about getting back into the gym?" Sarah paused, her fork halfway to her mouth. "What do you mean?" "I don't know," he said. "You've looked stronger lately." She smiled awkwardly, unsure if it was a compliment or something more. He watched her swallow. Not the food, but the lie. She was nervous, good, because he wasn't finished. Later that night, while Sarah was in the shower, Mark did something he swore he'd never do. He opened her laptop. It wasn't hard. She used the same password since college. Sunflower 21. It took less than 5 minutes to find a hidden folder named Travel Docs. Inside weren't travel documents. There were videos. Sarah and Ethan, together, in hotel rooms, in different cities. One of the files was timestamped with the exact date she claimed to be at her mother's funeral. Mark dropped the mouse. He couldn't breathe. She had lied to him about grief, about death. He wanted to scream, to break something. Instead, he copied the folder onto a flash drive. He needed to sit with this. He needed time. That night, they lay in the same bed. Sarah fast asleep, curled beside him like nothing was wrong. Mark stared at the ceiling, thinking, remembering, plotting. He didn't know what the end of the story would look like. But he knew one thing. It wouldn't be quiet. What if the betrayal runs deeper than even Mark imagined? And what happens when a third person, someone even Sarah doesn't know about, enters the picture? Coming up next, the man behind the curtain. And trust me, this one's a bombshell. The man behind the curtain. Mark couldn't shake the name. Ethan Keller. He had seen the man's face before, not just in videos with Sarah, but somewhere else. It was gnawing at him. That annoying, shadowy déjà vu that wouldn't go away. He sat in his car for nearly 2 hours, staring at the printed screenshots, flipping them like flashcards of pain, and then it hit him. Ethan wasn't just a personal trainer. He was a former client of Mark's. 3 years ago, a failed security startup that had hired Mark as a consultant. Ethan had access to data, to tools, to surveillance systems. Mark's stomach dropped. This wasn't just infidelity. This was something much darker. Was Sarah recruited, manipulated, or worse? Was she helping Ethan spy on him? His skin crawled. He rushed home and opened his encrypted business laptop. One Sarah never touched. He began cross-referencing Ethan's email and IP from their old project. He traced logins, patterns. One IP address kept reappearing, from his own neighborhood, from his own home, at times when he wasn't even there. Mark's hands started to shake. He checked his smart home system, access logs. His front door had been unlocked remotely 5 times in the past 2 weeks, twice while he was out of town. The exact times Sarah said she was visiting her sister. Mark stood up so fast his chair nearly fell over. He darted into the hallway, into the guest bedroom, pulled the closet door open, and there it was, a small black object mounted into the top corner, a hidden camera, one he never installed. Mark yanked it from the wall. It was active, connected to Wi-Fi. He smashed it on the floor, glass and circuits scattered. He stared at it, heart pounding, rage boiling. This wasn't just cheating. This was invasion, surveillance, and then realization. His daughter's room. He ran in, checked every inch, behind the teddy bears, beneath the nightstand, even inside the air vent. Another camera, smaller, hidden behind a unicorn sticker on the wall. Mark nearly vomited. His daughter Lily had been watched. He sank to the floor, gripping the edge of the bed. This wasn't just betrayal. It was war, and he wasn't going to wait for answers anymore. He grabbed his phone and dialed someone he hadn't spoken to in years. Caleb, an old friend from military intelligence. Caleb picked up on the first ring. "Mark, I need your help," Mark said, his voice shaking. "There are cameras in my house." A pause. Then Caleb replied, "Send me everything. I'm on the next flight." Mark sat in the silence that followed. Outside, the world kept moving. Birds chirped, cars passed. But inside that house, everything had changed. His wife hadn't just cheated. She had opened the door to a man with access, to his data, to his privacy, to his family. The stakes had shifted. This wasn't about heartbreak anymore. This was about safety, and Mark was done being passive. You won't believe what Caleb uncovers when he digs into Ethan's background, and how far Sarah is really involved. Don't miss what's coming next. Everything you thought you knew was a lie. The friend you can't Google. Caleb arrived before sunrise. No luggage, no warning, just a knock on Mark's door and a sharp nod that said, "Let's go." They set up shop in the garage, where Mark had already disconnected the Wi-Fi and wrapped the router in tinfoil like a paranoid prepper. But Caleb didn't laugh. He just said, "Smart. He's watching you." "He?" Mark asked. Caleb looked up, eyes cold. "Ethan's not some gym flirt. Mark, he's former cyber recon." Mark's breath caught. "What?" Black hat turned contractor. He was on 3 classified projects until he retired to start that fitness brand. Caleb pulled out his tablet and showed Mark a document. Ethan's real name wasn't even Ethan Keller. It was Elias Kessler, and he had 3 aliases, 2 lawsuits, 1 sealed criminal file. Mark's stomach flipped. Sarah had brought this man into their home. Around Lily, the cameras in the house, probably Ethan's. The device Caleb found hidden inside the smoke detector in the nursery confirmed it. They weren't just being watched. They were being profiled. Caleb said, "He's not in love with your wife. He's using her. And he's watching you because you have something he wants." Mark blinked. What could I possibly have? Caleb tapped the side of his head. Data, contacts, or leverage? Mark thought of his consulting work, his government contracts, the encrypted prototypes he reviewed last year. Everything suddenly made horrible sense. What if Sarah was the gateway? Not even willingly. What if she'd been seduced, manipulated, or blackmailed? He remembered her sudden obsession with privacy settings, her phone always on silent, her browsing history wiped clean. Was she hiding the affair, or something bigger? Caleb opened his laptop and said, "I'm going to ghost your house." He wiped the home network, spoofed the IP, and set up surveillance of his own. Then he handed Mark a burner phone. "If something happens to me, call this number. No one else." That night, Mark didn't sleep. He sat in the hallway outside Lily's room like a guard dog. The world had shifted. It wasn't just a broken heart anymore. It was survival, and he couldn't trust anyone. Not even the woman he once called his soulmate, especially not her. But just as he drifted off on the floor, his phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. Just 3 words. "You're too late. The danger is real now, and Mark's home is no longer safe." Coming up next, what Sarah really knows, and why her silence might not be guilt, but fear. The truth she never meant to tell. Sarah hadn't come home. Mark waited in the dark, the TV on but muted, watching the silent flicker of a world that didn't know his was falling apart. It was almost midnight when the front door creaked open. Sarah stepped inside, soaked from the rain, her shoes leaving a trail of water like a breadcrumb path of guilt. She stopped when she saw him. Mark didn't move. He didn't speak. He just stared. She finally broke the silence. "I was at Becca's," she said. He let the lie hang in the air between them. "Try again," he whispered. Her mouth opened, but no words came, just the tremble of someone caught too many times. "You got a message," he said, holding up the burner phone Caleb gave him. He tossed it to her. The screen still lit. "You're too late." Her face changed. It wasn't guilt. It was fear. Real, deep animal fear. Her eyes locked on his, pleading. Not with excuses, but with something darker. "You shouldn't have gone to Caleb," she whispered. Mark's chest went still. "What?" She walked past him, pulled the curtains closed, turned off the lamp, then crouched in front of him like she was about to confess to a crime. "You think this is about cheating," she said. "It's not." He waited, his whole body buzzing now, not with rage, but dread. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," Sarah said, voice cracking. "Ethan found me online, through the grief forums. After Lily's seizure last year, I was lost." Mark remembered the hospital, the scans, the long nights. They almost lost Lily, and he had shut down emotionally, throwing himself into work. "I thought I was talking to another grieving parent," she said. "Someone who understood." Mark's breath caught, and he did, until he didn't. Sarah looked him dead in the eyes. "He started asking questions about you, about your contracts, about where you stored encrypted data." Mark's blood froze. She went on. "I never told him anything at first, but he's persuasive. When I tried to pull away, he threatened to leak a fake affair. He said he had AI tools that could fake texts, photos, even a deepfake video." She paused. "He said you'd lose your clearance, your career, that you'd never see Lily again." Mark was shaking. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't want you to see me as weak," she whispered. "I didn't want you to know how stupid I was." Mark stood, not in anger, but in shock. This wasn't just betrayal. It was manipulation on a scale he couldn't comprehend. But one thing still didn't make sense. The cameras, the hotel, the messages, the whispers, they were real. Sarah nodded slowly. "He made me do all of it, staged, scripted. He said if I didn't play along, he'd take Lily." Mark's knees nearly buckled. Everything suddenly made sense. And nothing did. "Why now?" he asked. "Because I found something," she said. "I stole something from him last week. Something that proves what he's doing to other families. And now, he knows." Mark felt like the floor had vanished. Their marriage was broken, yes, but the danger, it had only just begun. And then she pulled a tiny USB stick from her coat pocket and held it up. "I need you to protect this," she said, "because he's coming." And right at that moment, the power went out. The house plunged into blackness. And outside, the unmistakable sound of tires on gravel. Someone had arrived. What was on that USB stick? Who just pulled into the driveway? And is it too late for Mark and Sarah to fight back? Together, keep listening. In the next chapter, secrets come to light, but not everyone will survive what's coming. Something in the darkness watches. Mark lunged for the flashlight in the kitchen drawer, nearly knocking over a chair as he fumbled through the chaos. The sudden blackout had turned their house into a trap. Every corner looked unfamiliar, like something was hiding in plain sight. Sarah clutched the USB tightly in one hand, the other gripping the counter. Outside, the car engine cut off. Then, footsteps. Slow, deliberate, walking through the rain-soaked gravel. Upstairs now, Mark hissed. Sarah obeyed, moving fast but silent. Like every sound might trigger something, Mark followed, closing the bedroom door behind them. He slid the dresser in front of it. It wouldn't hold forever, but it bought them seconds. Seconds were everything now. They crouched in the dark, breath held, listening. A soft creak echoed from downstairs. Front door. Then silence again. It was worse than noise. Mark pulled out his phone. No signal. The landline downstairs was dead too. Probably cut. Sarah whispered, "It's him. How does he know where we live?" Mark whispered back, "I never told him our address. Never." Mark's mind raced. Could he have tracked her? Was her phone compromised? Then he remembered the USB. "What's on that stick, Sarah?" She hesitated. Bank accounts, names, messages, dozens of families. He's been blackmailing widows, using grief support groups to get in. I copied everything. And now, Mark said slowly, he's cleaning house. There was another sound from downstairs. A soft metallic click. The back door. Mark's blood turned cold. Whoever it was, they were already inside. Suddenly, the hallway floor creaked, right outside the bedroom. Then, a knock. Not loud, not frantic, just polite, measured, like a predator playing with its prey. Sarah squeezed Mark's hand. "I'm scared." He kissed her forehead. "I won't let anything happen to you or Lily." A voice came from the other side of the door. Smooth, chilling. "You shouldn't have taken what wasn't yours, Sarah." Mark's pulse exploded in his chest. He reached under the bed, pulling out a small safe box. Inside, a loaded pistol he hadn't touched in years. Registered, legal, forgotten, until now. He looked at Sarah. Her eyes were wide but steady. She nodded. The knock came again. And this time, the voice was louder. "I'll give you 10 seconds to slide it under the door, or I burn the place down." Mark's hands trembled as he chambered around. The hallway light flickered. Then, smoke from under the door. Not fire gas, some kind of smoke bomb. Toxic? Blinding? They didn't have time to find out. Mark kicked the dresser aside. "Run to the garage now." They burst out, the smoke stinging their eyes, vision blurred. A shadow moved at the end of the hallway. Too fast, too quiet. Mark fired once. A scream, a real human scream, sharp, guttural. Then another shot, but not from him. The wall beside his head exploded in drywall. "Go, go!" he shouted. They reached the stairs. Sarah tripped. USB flew from her hand. It skidded across the floor, landing at the feet of a man in black. Mask, gloves, gun. But then the most unexpected thing happened. He picked it up, stared at it, and said, "Wrong one." Mark blinked. "What?" But the man didn't answer. He just bolted through the front door. Gone. Vanished into the night. The entire attack. And he hadn't even taken what he came for. Sarah turned to Mark. I had two." Mark's eyes widened. "You what?" "I split the data. One drive's fake. The other's still hidden." Mark couldn't believe what he was hearing. All this horror, and the real drive. "Where is it?" Sarah stared at him, then whispered, "Lily's backpack." The camera in the hallway was still recording, and right now someone else was watching. Not Ethan, not Sarah, not even Mark, but someone neither of them had ever heard of. Someone who knew where Lily was going to school tomorrow, and who was already waiting. In the next chapter, the past catches up faster than anyone expected. Who's really behind all of this? And what secret has Sarah still not revealed, even to Mark? the ending they never saw coming. The next morning arrived with unnatural stillness. Sarah packed Lily's lunch, her hands moving on autopilot, eyes hollow from the night before. Mark sat at the kitchen table, watching her like a man trying to solve a puzzle he never asked to play. The silence between them was thick, almost sentient. Neither of them mentioned the USB. Neither of them mentioned the masked man who could have killed them both. Mark's voice broke the quiet. "She can't go to school today." Sarah froze. "She has a math test." She's not going," he interrupted. "I'll call in sick. We need to talk." Sarah hesitated, then gave a small nod. Lily played with her cereal at the table, unaware of the war happening just behind her parents' eyes. Mark waited until she was in her room before leaning in. "You said it was in her backpack." Sarah nodded slowly. "But that's not true, is it?" Her lips tightened. "No." Mark stood, pacing. "Then where is it, Sarah? Because whoever was in our house knew something, knew enough to risk everything. So what the hell are you still not telling me?" Sarah reached under her sweater and pulled a tiny silver pendant from around her neck. It looked like ordinary jewelry, but it clicked open. Inside, a microdrive. Mark's jaw clenched. "You wore it? You slept with that thing around your neck?" "I couldn't risk losing it," she whispered. Mark's eyes darkened. "Then what was in Lily's bag?" Sarah swallowed. "A tracker. I needed to know if someone was following her too." Mark sat down again, this time slowly. He looked at her like she was a stranger again. "You don't trust me." "I do," she said quickly. "But you don't understand what this man is capable of." He leaned forward. "Then make me understand." And so she did. Sarah told him everything. The man wasn't just blackmailing women. He was selling identities. Widows, single mothers, the recently divorced, vulnerable people whose financial data could be used, duplicated, and sold. The fake grief group was just a front, a way in. The reason he was so desperate to get the USB back wasn't just for blackmail evidence. It was proof of federal crimes, enough to bury him forever. Mark listened, the floor under his life cracking with every word. "Why didn't you go to the police?" "I tried," Sarah said. "They brushed me off, said I had no solid proof, and then one of the agents who came to my house, he was in one of the photos. He's part of it, Mark." Mark went still. That changed everything. Suddenly, this wasn't about infidelity. It was about survival. "Okay," he said quietly. "Then we disappear. We send the drive anonymously and vanish new names, new lives." Sarah nodded, but before either of them could move, the landline rang. Not their cell phones. The landline, which hadn't worked in months. They looked at each other. Mark picked it up, hands tense. "Hello?" Static. Then a voice. Soft. Deliberate. "You're already too late." Mark's blood froze. "Who is this?" The voice didn't answer. Just one more sentence. "She was never your wife, Mark." Click. The line went dead. Mark turned slowly toward Sarah, but she was already standing, face pale, hands trembling. "No," she whispered. "No, he's lying. He's trying to twist things." Mark felt the floor tilt under him. "What does that mean? What does that mean, Sarah?" Tears welled in her eyes. I can explain." But the doorbell rang. 3 sharp chimes. Mark's heart stopped. He moved to the window, pulled the curtain slightly. Outside stood 2 men in suits. Not police, not FBI, no badges, no smiles. Mark turned to Sarah. She was gone, back door open, like she had vanished into smoke. And the microdrive? Gone with her. Mark stood frozen in the kitchen, the weight of it all crashing down. The truth, the betrayal, the fact that maybe, just maybe, he never really knew her. And as the doorbell rang again, louder this time, Mark whispered under his breath, "What the hell did I just become a part of?" This isn't the end. It's just the beginning. Should Mark chase her, trust her, or finally walk away from the only life he's ever known? Let us know in the comments.